Monsters in D&D are scary, and you want to make sure your character makes it to the end of the story. Death is quite a bummer in D&D, especially if you've played this character for like months and months and months. Luckily, there's ways to decrease the chances monsters will hurt you. With the right optimization tricks, you don't have to fear for your life. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where the best defense is playing smart. In optimization circles, one topic that comes up all the time when discussing what to actually optimize for is damage dealt per damage taken. This is a very telling indicator of whether you're doing well in combat, because unlike damage per round, DPR, it doesn't just tell you how much damage you're outputting, but frames it in the context of how safely you're doing that damage. In short, it takes into account how likely you're going to die. Now, no metric is a 100% accurate way of measuring performance, so take this with a grain of salt. For example, another important indicator is resource expenditure and efficiency, but we'll talk about that in another video. If you can maximize damage dealt per damage taken, you're gonna survive the campaign and make it to the end of the story. There's two ways to go about this actually. You can obviously try to maximize your damage dealt. This is the first thing most people think of when thinking about optimization. It's honestly an incredibly overrepresented topic in optimization discussions, and also a pretty reductive way of looking at optimization. The other way of going about maximizing damage dealt per damage taken is reducing the damage you take. In fact, reducing the damage you take is the best way to be in control of reducing your chances to die.
But Koopal, doesn't dealing more damage mean I'll be taking less damage as well?
Absolutely, Gator, and we'll definitely get into that eventually. But it's far from the only way to take less damage. If you manage to reduce your damage taken to 0 for infinite rounds while still being able to output even 1 DPR, then we're talking about a default kill here. No further resources are needed to win the fight, you've already won. You can't be hurt and the enemies will die eventually. At optimization tables, they like to force default kills a lot. When there's a default kill, the fight is usually narrated to speed up the game. They have to do this, and there's no point in playing out the turns because the conclusion is certain. I'll point out more examples later in this video. Now, of course, reducing your damage taken doesn't always result in a default kill. If your damage taken is not reduced to 0, there's no guarantee you'll never be hit or the monsters won't turn the table on your party. But reducing your damage taken will do a lot to reduce your chance of dying. It's very logical. This comes up all the time in optimization. So let's talk about how we can make it as hard as possible for the monsters to hurt us. Number 1, high initiative plus high Nova damage or debilitating conditions. One way to avoid damage from enemies is to kill or subdue them before they get to act. That's why having a high initiative score is really important. If you can leverage high Nova damage to take out a dangerous target before they can act, that enemy deals no damage to you, or even your friends.
See? I was right all along!
Gator, I said yes. Anyways, another way to make sure they can't hurt you is by using shutdown spells. That will make them useless before they can act. You can put them in Wall of Force, incapacitate them with Hypnotic Pattern, or you can use Web to reduce the enemy's speed to 0, or close to 0, so they can't properly reach you. These spells are incredibly strong with a team. If the enemy can't take actions and or can't get to you, you and your team take 0 damage from them. Number 2 is high AC plus the dodge action. This method isn't 100% foolproof, but it can work very well against enemies that use attacks. If you have high AC and get in a position where you can just take the dodge action, you reduce your damage taken to almost 0. A standard optimized spellcaster has medium armor and shield proficiency with +2 dexterity and the shield spell on top of that. With half plate, that's 19 to 24 AC without magic items. To give you an example, example how effective this is, a monster with +7 to hit has a 20% chance to hit you when you're dodging. When you use the shield spell with the dodge, it's 4%. That is insanely low. 4% chance to hit? It's clearly really good.
But Kobold, won't the enemies just attack your friends then? And how are you gonna win if you just dodge all the time?
Yes, they might go and attack your allies. But that's not a bad thing. You might be concentrating on something super duper important like Hypnotic Pattern. And maybe your friends have high AC in the shield spell too. And if they do, they can do the same thing or something better than that. As for how you're gonna win, it's quite simple if you're being focus fired. Either your party members who aren't at risk of being hurt do the damage for you, while you just tank all the hits, or you concentrate on a spell that does damage without having to use your action, like Spirit Guardians. That spell also keeps the enemy from easily going after your allies. Incredible spell. Clerics should absolutely use Spirit Guardians and dodge as part of their arsenal to win battles with minimal injuries. It's especially effective if you can doorway dodge and block enemies. Clerics like that are way better than any melee martial in the game. Not only do they have high AC, but in 2024 they can access the shield spell super easily now. They have more resources than melee martials, heals got boosted, they get divine intervention, they have AoEs, the list goes on. Enough about memeing on the martials, let's move on to number 3. Outrange, outrun, and fly speed. Another way to prevent damage to your character is outranging them. If you can reach your enemy but they can't reach you, you take 0 damage while killing them. This is why fighting at range is so much better than fighting in melee. A longbow has 150 to 600 foot range, so you can outrange tons of enemies with this. I'm pretty sure if you have sharpshooter, that's like 99% of monsters. But anyways, even if they dash at you to try to close the gap, you can just walk backwards and increase the amount of turns it takes for them to get in range with you. This also works with crossbows and cantrips, though they have less range. So it doesn't take as long for the enemies to catch up with you. That is unless you also outrun them. If you also move faster than the enemies, they can never get in range with you to hurt you. The easiest way to achieve this is by using mounts. I've talked about them many times before. To keep it quick, they can dash and disengage for you for free, and that will outspeed most enemies in the game. You can buy mounts, which are pretty cheap, or you can get one through Find Steed or Phantom Steed. These steed spells are insane, like Phantom Steed can dash 200 feet. I highly recommend getting mounts. If it dies, buy a new one or resummon it. And lastly, if you or your mount can fly, then melee enemies can never hurt you. You can force a default kill by doing that. You can do the same with the Mongolian playstyle, but flying up and shooting down is the easiest. You should never underestimate range and speed, and I haven't even talked about cover yet. Which brings me to the next one. It's Chipeko. It's been a while.
We gotta talk about the token maker.
Yeah, you can make your token take cover behind a wall.
No, Kobold, I'm talking about customization.
Oh, my bad. You can make monsters, players, and NPC tokens. They've got it all, and it's all customizable. Every little detail of your token. Horns, hair, snouts, faces, clothes, random things. Speaking of random, you can press the random button for something quick, and then just shove it into the campaign. Speedrun record.
Kobold, they even have kobolds.
I know, and that's their best feature. They didn't put it in their selling point. They're silly. Anyways, they release 5 tokens every week, each with accessories and color options, which means your token collection grows over time. You'll have hundreds of them and eventually thousands. All of this is VTT ready. I know for sure they're on Foundry. Check out the token maker at chipeko.com/packtactics. It comes with a little demo you can play around with. Link in the description. Back to the video. Number 4, cover, and especially full cover. You can use the environment to your advantage to reduce incoming damage. I hope this is obvious. You won't believe how many comments I get of people not using cover. And it's like, what? Listen, guys, like walls, doorways, hallways, even the previous room you were in, you should use that to your advantage. The environment is so incredibly important. Sometimes the battle map itself just determines the whole fight. Guys, you need to end your turn behind full cover if you see there's full cover. In a city, or building, or a dungeon, there's cover everywhere. Take advantage of it. What are you doing? Have you never played a shooter before? Like, get away, run, take cover. So with full cover, enemies usually can't target you from their current position. That means you take 0 damage. You're forcing them to reposition themselves already in action to do something to you, which isn't ideal for them in a lot of cases. Like the ready action. If they make a ready action to attack you, they only make 1 attack even if they have multi-attack. That reduces their DPR, obviously. Even if there isn't anything to take cover behind, you can create your own cover. With mold earth, shape water, you basically make like an ice cube. Or minor illusion. Minor illusion is fake cover, but it will fool people. You can even take it up a notch and cast rope trick, which is a castle move. I've talked about this spell many times before, link in the description for a main video. Rope trick protects you against even more effects than mundane cover would, and you can have your entire party in there. From tons of experience, it's either cast in a dragon fight. You know, rope trick destroys dragons because it's easier to bait the breath weapon. Or it's used when shit really hits the fan and optimizers have to scramble. I think I should make another video about it. There's so much things you can do with this spell. I've never seen an optimized party without this spell. This is one of those mandatory ones for those tables. Oh, and dragon campaigns. No rope trick in a dragon campaign? Oof, that's painful. Anyways, we gotta move on to number 5. I babbled off script. Number 5 is damage immunity. There are some ways to become completely immune to certain sources of damage. These ways are usually a lot harder to achieve because they require high-level spells, certain magic items, or you have to actively work together with your DM to make something happen. For example, you can take the form of a creature that has immunity to certain damage types by using Magic Jar, True Polymorph, or a combination of those. You can also cast spells like Invulnerability and stuff like that. A special mention goes out to Anti-Life Shell. I think it's super underrated. It's a 5th level druid spell that creates a bubble for your entire party that denies most creatures entry. You can potentially default kill with it. The first time I ever saw it was a Death Cleric casting it. Then our wizard for memes double cast Summon Greater Demon and let go of the concentration. There was double Balguras running around destroying everything while we just stood there. We were completely safe, just throwing cantrips and making ranged attacks. That combo is like 2 times stronger now in 2024. I'm not joking, they boosted Balguras like crazy. Who needs marshals when you got Summon Greater Demons? Well, to be fair, it's a very dangerous spell if you don't know what you're doing. Anyways, back to damage immunity. There's also magic items like Cube of Force or Wave that, with 2014 rules at least, creates barriers that block creatures, projectiles, magic, or a combination of those. Depending on the encounter, you can choose the right barrier, and that will greatly reduce the damage taken or even force a default kill. I've made a video about the old Cube of Force, link in the description. It was super broken before. And finally, there's lycanthropy. I've talked about this with the 2014 rules, link in the description again. You can basically become immune to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage if you become a lycanthrope. That's incredibly powerful because most monsters do one of these kinds of damage. In 2024, lycanthropy doesn't give you these damage immunities anymore. And even if they did, the new rules basically say the players lose control of their character when they become a lycanthrope. Bummer, right? I think we should let furries become furries in Dungeons and Dragons, but Wizards of the Coast disagrees.
Wizards have gone woke.
Unbelievable. Woke is killing Dungeons and Dragons. We can't even become lycanthropes anymore. Did you know that they removed gnomes from the monster manual? We can't kill gnomes anymore. What the heck? Kobolds are still in the monster manual and you can kill them, but there's no gnomes. Whoa! I know people are mad about the orc thing, but I don't care about that. I want to kill deep gnomes. Anyway, seriously, if you're playing 2024 rules and you want to play with lycanthrope stuff, talk to your DM. You might not get the immunity stuff, but who knows. And the video, that's the 5 ways. If you employ these optimization tactics to stay out of harm's way, no one will be able to touch you, and you get to live to see the end of the story. That's very optimal. Always work with safety barriers. That's what oil platforms tell you. Well, to be more specific, they tell you to use 2 safety barriers, or as many as you can possibly stack. I think you should do the same for Dungeons and Dragons. End of video. Don't forget to check out Chipeku. Tons of maps and tokens.
Also, Kobold and Gator Dice.
If you want us to join your table, please follow the project on BackerKit.
One last thing. We're flying to West Virginia this week.
On the 15th of March, I'm in Huntington, West Virginia. I'm gonna play bagpipes live for St. Patrick's Day at the Jockey Club. So if you're in the area and you want to see me in person, here's your chance. To optimize, if you mention pack tactics to the bartender, you'll get a 10% off your bar tab. So come drink with me, guys. You get to meet Gator too.
Yeah! See you in West Virginia. Bye-bye. America.